The air in the grand chamber of Xylo's prime station was cold and smelled of recycled oxygen and alien musk. Ambassador Krell, a Vex with smooth gray skin and large, dark eyes, tapped a bony finger on the podium. The sound echoed. Representatives from a dozen species watched. They sat in curved rows under the soft blue light. In the center of the room stood two figures. One was Kim Min-soo. He was a human man, not very tall or very wide. He wore a simple black uniform without any marks. His hands were still at his sides. His face showed no emotion. He looked like he was waiting for a bus, not for a duel that could change things for his people. The other figure was Tavik. He was a Lorian. He stood a full head taller than Min-soo. His body was covered in plates of dark, shiny chitin, like a bug. He had no hair. His eyes were solid black pools. From his forearms, two long, curved blades made of bone extended. They were natural parts of his body. They looked very sharp. He breathed slowly, a low hissing sound coming from his neck. He looked at Min-soo like a person looks at a small, annoying insect. Lee Yuna, the human diplomat, sat at a small table to the side. She held a datapad tightly. Her knuckles were white. She was trying to look calm, but her heart was beating fast. This was a disaster. A stupid argument over mining rights on a small moon had led to this. The Lorians had demanded satisfaction, a duel, and her agent Min-soo had accepted. She still did not know why he had agreed so quickly. Ambassador Krell spoke. His voice was dry and precise, translated by small devices everyone wore. The conflict between the Lorian hegemony and the human expansion pact over the mineral claims in the Kirin Belt will be settled, he said. It will be settled by single combat. The terms are set by ancient tradition. The victor's claim will be recognized for 100 standard cycles. He looked at both of them. Do both champions understand and accept the binding nature of this duel? Tavik made a sharp clicking noise. I accept. The weak thing's blood will water the truth. He flexed his arm blades. They made a soft scraping sound. All eyes turned to Min-soo. He simply nodded. I accept. Yuna closed her eyes for a second. There was no going back now. The weapons, Krell continued, reading from a screen, to honor the Lorian tradition of natural combat, and to ensure a fair test of personal skill, the duel will be fought with natural bodily weapons or handheld melee tools only. This was normal. Many duels used melee weapons. It was considered more honorable than shooting from far away. Then Krell said the next part. Therefore, to remove any primitive advantage. He glanced at Min-soo. All projectile weapons are prohibited. All plasma discharge weapons. All sonic disruptors. All directed energy weapons of any kind. This includes any device that propels a solid object or creates a damaging beam or field beyond the length of the arm. The room was quiet. Then a murmur went through the alien delegates. It was a sound of approval. They saw this as very fair. It made the fight purely about strength and skill with simple tools. It played perfectly to the Lorian strengths, their natural claws. It seemed to play against the humans, who were known to like their complicated guns. Yuna's blood ran cold. This was worse than she thought. They hadn't just limited weapons. They had defined them in a way that banned every standard human sidearm. A pistol? Banned. A laser? Banned. A stunner? Banned. Min-soo was not a brawler. He was a specialist, and his specialty had just been made illegal. Tavik let out a gurgling sound that was his version of a laugh. He raised his arm blades, crossing them in front of his chest. These are my weapons. They are part of me. They are pure. The human may bring his little metal toothpick if he wishes. It will break against my skin. Min-soo did not look at Tavik. He was looking at Ambassador Krell. His voice was calm and clear. The rules are clear. No guns. No energy weapons. Only handheld melee tools. Is that correct? Krell nodded, a slow bob of his large head. That is correct. A tool held in the hand. No extensions. No projections of energy. The physical tool must make the physical cut. I understand, Min-soo said. He finally turned his head to look at Tavik. He looked the Lorian up and down, slowly. His eyes moved over the chitinous plates, the joints at the shoulders and knees, the vulnerable neck. It was not a look of fear. It was the look of a man checking the measurements of a piece of wood before he cuts it. "Do you have a weapon to declare, human?" Krell asked, sounding bored. "I will bring my personal sidearm," Minsu said. The phrase sidearm made a few aliens twitch. They thought of pistols. "It complies with your rules," Minsu added. "Very well," said Krell. He did not care. He thought the human was bringing a sword or a long knife. It would be useless. Lorian chitin could turn most slashes. The fight would be short. "The duel will commence in 24 hours in the main arena." Dismissed. Tavik gave Minsu one last contemptuous hiss and turned, stomping away. The delegates began to talk and filter out of the chamber. Yuna rushed to Minsu's side. "Minsu, what were you thinking? Sidearm? They'll think you're trying to cheat. His body is a weapon. Your best hope was a gun. And they banned them all." Minsu started walking toward the exit, his pace steady. "They banned guns, Yuna. They didn't ban knives." Yuna hurried to keep up with him. "A knife? Against that? His arms are longer than your legs. His skin is like armor. One knife won't do anything." A very small, almost invisible smile touched Minsu's lips for a fraction of a second. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knows a secret. "Who said anything?" he asked quietly. "About one knife?" The human quarters on Xylos Prime were small and plain. A living space, a sleeping area, and a small hygiene unit. Yuna paced back and forth across the gray floor. Her mind raced with legal arguments, loopholes, appeals. They could challenge the terms. They could claim bias. It would look weak, but it was better than watching Minsu get cut apart. Minsu sat at a simple table. He was very still. He had a datapad in his hands, but he was not reading it. He was staring at the wall, thinking. "We have to file a protest," Yuna said. "The terms are clearly favoring the Lorian biology. It's an unfair disadvantage. The Accord courts might see it that way." "They won't," Minsu said, his voice low. "The terms are clear. Handheld melee tools. It's fair by their rules." "Fair? He has swords growing out of his arms." Yuna snapped. She stopped pacing and faced him. "What is your plan? Do you even have one? Or are you just going to walk in there and die for honor?" Minsu put the datapad down. He looked at her. His eyes were calm, but there was a sharpness in them now. "My plan," he said, "is to follow the rules." He picked up his own datapad and typed a few commands. "I am submitting my weapon declaration to the arbiters." Yuna's device chimed. She looked at it. It was a copy of Minsu's submission. It was a simple form. Under weapon classification, he had entered personal sidearm kit, melee. Under description, he had written assorted handheld cutting/piercing tools, no energy components, no projectile function. "A kit? What does that mean?" Yuna asked, her confusion growing. "It means what it says," Minsu replied. He sent the form. Within minutes, a reply chimed. The chief arbiter, a stern-looking insectoid named Vex, appeared on the screen. "Champion Minsu, your declaration is unusual. Explain this kit." Minsu faced the screen. "It is a collection of tools. Each is a handheld melee instrument. Each complies with the prohibition on guns and energy weapons. I wish to bring it to the duel." The arbiter's mandibles clicked. "You wish to bring multiple tools?" "Yes. Are any powered? Do any contain energy cells, plasma cores, or explosive charges?" "No," Minsu said. "They are simple pieces of shaped metal, ceramic, and polymer. You may scan them." A team of 2 neutral officials arrived at their door shortly after. They were carrying scanning devices. Minsu pointed to a long, low case under his bed. It was made of a dull gray metal. It looked heavy. The officials opened it. Yuna moved closer to see. Inside, the case was lined with a form-fitting black foam. And nestled in the foam, in row after row, were knives. Not one or two. Dozens. Yuna's breath caught. The officials blinked, their sensors humming. They passed their scanners over the case. The devices beeped softly, reading only inert materials. Steel, titanium, G10 polymer, hardened ceramic. No energy signatures. No moving parts except for simple hinges on a few. No chemical signatures for explosives. The knives were all different. Yuna saw long ones and short ones. Some had thick blades, some were thin as needles. Some had hooks, some had straight backs, some had deep curves. There were knives with holes in the blade, knives with notches, knives that looked like sharpened spikes. There were small folding knives and large fixed blades with handles wrapped in cord point. One of the officials, a tall being with 4 arms, looked at Minsu. "This is your sidearm? All of it?" "It is my kit," Minsu corrected politely. "Each tool has a purpose. Together, they form my sidearm system." The official looked at his partner, who shrugged. Their job was to check for violations. There were none. The letter of the law said, handheld melee tools. It did not say how many tools. "It is unusual," the 4-armed official said, "but it does not break the rules. The kit is approved." They made a note on their own datapads and left, shaking their heads slightly. The door closed. Yuna stared at the open case. She slowly counted. The number was absurd. "There are 47 knives in there," she said, her voice a whisper. "Yes," Minsu said. He walked over and began to look at them, his eyes moving over each one with a quiet focus. "Why?" Yuna asked. The word burst out of her. "Why would you need 47 knives? You only have 2 hands. This looks insane, Minsu. The whole galaxy will think we are crazy. They already think we are violent barbarians. This proves it to them." Minsu picked up a medium-sized knife with a deep belly and a sharp point. He held it gently. "They think a knife is just for stabbing or cutting," he said. "That is like saying a computer is only for typing. It is a lack of imagination." He put that knife down and picked up another. This one was small and square-tipped like a sharpened shovel. "This is for prying. That one," he pointed to a knife with a long, slender blade, "is for reaching into small spaces. That one with the hook is for catching and controlling. That heavy one is for chopping and breaking." He looked at Yuna. "Tavik is a problem. Complex problem. He has hard armor. He has long reach. He has strength. He expects one solution, a sword fight. But I am not bringing one solution." He gestured over the case. "I am bringing 47. After the arbiters left, Li Yuna stood in the middle of the room. She felt unsteady. The open case on the floor seemed to glow under the room lights. The 47 knives lay there. They were clean and sharp and silent. Kim Minsu knelt beside the case. He began to take the knives out one by one. He placed them in a careful order on the floor. He did not rush. He was quiet. His hands moved with a strange kind of respect. Yuna could not understand. "You trained for this?" she asked. Her voice was thin. "You knew they would ban guns?" "No," Minsu said. He did not look up. He was checking the edge of a blade with his thumb. "I trained to solve problems. This is just a new problem." He placed a knife with a curved spine next to a straight one. The order seemed to make sense only to him. Yuna watched his face. It was calm, but his eyes were far away. He was not in the room anymore. He was somewhere else. In his mind, Minsu was back on a mountain in Korea. The air was cold and smelled of pine and wet earth. He was in a small workshop warm from a wood stove. A woman stood over a table covered with tools and pieces of metal. Her name was Jaewa. Jaewa was not a soldier. She was a craftswoman. Her hands were strong and scarred. She was his teacher. In the memory, Jaewa picked up a piece of flat steel. It was rough and ugly. "Everyone sees a knife as a weapon first," she said. Her voice was warm but firm. "They are wrong. A knife is a key. It is the first tool humans ever made to change the world. It is for making other tools, for preparing food, for building shelter." She handed him the rough steel. "Feel its potential. It is not about killing. It is about unlocking." In the present, on Xylos Prime, Minsu picked up a knife with a wide, flat blade. He ran a finger along its spine. Yuna saw his lips move, but no sound came out. Back in the memory, Jae-Hwa showed him a finished knife. It was beautiful and simple. "A good knife has a purpose," she said. "This shape is for skinning an animal cleanly. That one is for carving wood. This thin one is for delicate work. You do not use a carving knife to chop a tree. You match the tool to the task." Young Min-Soo frowned. "But for a fight, would you not want the biggest, sharpest one?" Jae-Hwa laughed. It was a good sound. "A fight is just another task. A very bad one. If you are in a fight, you have many small problems. An opponent's strength is a problem. His reach is a problem. His armor is a problem. His weapon is a problem. You do not use one key for 47 different locks." She opened a drawer. Inside were many knives, all different. "You see? You solve each little problem with the right little key. You slow him down. You unbalance him. You make him hurt. You find the gap. One big swing with a big knife." She shook her head. "That is for people who have only one key." In the cold room on the space station, Yuna sat down. She was starting to see it. It was not a pile of weapons. It was a toolbox. A very dangerous, very specific toolbox. "Did she teach you to fight?" Yuna asked softly. Min-Soo nodded. He picked up a small knife with a needle-like point. "She taught me to see a person or a creature as a series of systems. Joints, tendons, gaps in armor, points of balance. A knife is not for smashing. It is for precise interference." Another memory came. Min-Soo was older. He was in the military. He had other instructors who yelled about fitness and tactics. But on leave, he would visit Jae-Hwa. She was older now, her hair gray. He told her about his training, about guns and explosives. She listened, then pointed to an old, broken lawnmower engine on her bench. "Fix it," she said. He started to look for high-tech tools. She stopped him. She gave him only 3 simple hand tools: a wrench, a screwdriver, and a small pry bar. "It is the same," she said as he worked. "A gun is a loud, simple solution. It works until it doesn't. When your gun does not work, or you have no bullet, or the enemy is too close, what is left? Your mind, and the simple tools in your hand." Min-Soo finished with the engine. It started with a sputter. Jae-Hwa smiled. "Good. You used the pry bar to lift, not to smash. You used the screwdriver to turn, not to stab. The tool is not violent. The intention is violent. The tool is just a shape that lets an intention happen." Now, Min-Soo looked at the 47 shapes on the floor. Each shape was an intention. The intention to hook, to pry, to puncture, to slice, to parry, to throw, to distract. Yuna understood the truth now. The galaxy thought humans were primitive for using knives. But Min-Soo's teacher did not see knives as primitive. She saw them as the height of human thought. A shaped idea made solid. A specific answer to a specific question. "You are not bringing 47 weapons to a duel," Yuna said, the realization dawning. Min-Soo finally looked at her. A faint, real smile touched his eyes. "No," he said. "I am bringing one weapon. It just has 47 parts." He picked up a final knife, a heavy one with a sharp point. "And the most important part," he said, placing it down, "is the one holding them all together, the mind." The main arena of Xylos Prime was a huge bowl of dark metal. Rows of seats rose up into the shadows. Light poured down onto a circular floor made of a hard, gritty material that provided grip. The air hummed with the sound of 1,000 different voices. The smell of alien bodies and strange foods filled the space. Every species represented on the station seemed to be here. This was not just a duel over mining rights anymore. It was a show. News drones floated in the air, their lenses glowing. The story had spread. The human who was bringing a kit to fight a Lorian champion. Lee Yuna sat in a special box for diplomats. She felt very small. The representatives around her chattered in clicking and gurgling languages. She heard the words human and fool in the common trade tongue more than once. She held her datapad tightly and tried to keep her face still. A horn sounded, deep and vibrating. The crowd noise dropped to a low murmur. From one side of the arena, a gate opened. Tavik the Lorian stepped out. The crowd erupted. It was mostly cheers. The Lorians were a powerful species. Many others respected their brutal strength. Tavik looked even bigger under the bright lights. His chitinous plates gleamed like polished oil. He raised his two natural arm blades high. They caught the light, sharp and deadly. He turned in a slow circle, accepting the cheers. He was a picture of pure, natural power. He was a predator. He stopped facing the human's gate. He lowered his blades and stood perfectly still, waiting. The message was clear. He was ready. He was not worried. Another horn sounded. This one was higher in pitch. The gate on the other side of the arena opened. Kim Min-soo walked out. For a second, there was silence. Then the silence broke into a wave of confused sounds. There were gasps. There were bursts of laughter. There were clicks of disbelief. Min-soo did not look like a champion. He wore simple, dark pants and a tight-fitting shirt. Over this, he wore a harness. It was a system of straps across his chest, over his shoulders, around his waist and thighs. And on this harness, in sheaths and clips and loops, were the knives. They were not hidden. They were displayed. They lined his chest in a row. They hung from his hips. They were strapped to his thighs. Smaller ones were on his forearms. The handles were of different colors and shapes. Black, green, cord-wrapped, polished metal. The blades, some visible, some sheathed, hinted at different forms. He did not carry a shield. He did not carry a single mighty sword. He carried 47 individual knives. He walked to the center of the arena. His walk was calm and steady. He did not look at the crowd. He looked only at Tavik. The laughter in the crowd grew louder. A voice shouted in common tongue, "Did he rob a kitchen?" More laughter. Yuna's face burned with shame and anger. She wanted to hide. This was worse than she imagined. They looked like fools. Min-soo looked like a crazy person, a walking junk pile of sharp metal. Ambassador Krell, the Vex, stood in a high-efficiency box. He looked down, his large eyes blinking slowly. He too seemed surprised and disapproving. This was not dignified. This was not how a serious species behaved. Tavik made his gurgling laugh. The sound echoed in the quieting arena. "Little human," Tavik's voice boomed from speakers. "You have brought many toothpicks. Do you plan to build a fire after I break you?" Min-soo did not answer. He stopped about 10 meters from Tavik. He stood relaxed. He slowly reached over his right shoulder. He pulled a knife from a sheath on his back. It was not the biggest one. It was a medium-length knife with a strong, thick blade. He held it in his right hand. Point down. It was a signal. He was ready. The crowd's laughter died down, replaced by a buzzing curiosity. The human was serious. He really intended to fight with those things. Krell spoke, his dry voice amplified.
Champion.
You know the terms. The duel is to first blood. Only handheld melee tools are permitted. Do you both affirm your readiness? Tavik crossed his arm blades with a sharp clack. I affirm. Min-soo gave a single, sharp nod. I affirm. Then begin, said Krell. Tavik did not wait. He exploded into motion. He was fast for his size. He covered the distance in 3 great strides. His right arm blade came down in a terrible slash aimed at Min-soo's head. It was a move meant to end the fight immediately. The crowd gasped. Yuna flinched, closing her eyes for a half-second. When she opened them, Min-soo was not where he had been. He had not jumped back. He had stepped forward and to the side, inside the arc of the huge swing. He did not try to block the heavy chitin blade with his little knife. Instead, his left hand flashed to his chest. He drew a different knife. This one was short and had a hooked tip as Tavik's blade whistled past. Min-soo's left hand shot out. He did not stab Tavik. He hooked the small knife behind the joint of Tavik's swinging arm. He pulled, not with great strength, but with perfect timing. Tavik's own momentum was turned against him. The Lorian stumbled forward, off balance. His deadly slash hit only empty air. A surprised hush fell over the arena. The move had been so small, so quick. It used almost no strength. It was not an attack. It was a correction. Tavik snarled, spinning around. He was angry now. The human had made him look clumsy. He attacked again, a furious series of horizontal cuts. Minsu moved. He was not running away. He was circling, his steps light and precise. His right hand still held the first knife. His left hand put the hooked knife away and drew another from his thigh. This one had a long, slender blade. He was not trying to hit Tavik yet. He was watching. He was solving the first problems. The problem of reach. The problem of weight. The problem of the Lorian's anger. The real fight had begun. And the human with the 47 knives was still untouched. The arena was silent except for the scrape of Tavik's feet and the hiss of his breath. The Lorian was furious. His first attacks had failed. He had not touched the human. The human moved like water. He never stayed where Tavik's blades landed. Minsu was calm. His mind was clear. He saw only problems and tools. Problem 1. The heavy downward chop. The solution was not to block it. The solution was the hooked knife, the cumul. It redirected the force. Problem solved. Problem 2. The fast horizontal swings. Tavik was using them now, trying to trap Minsu. The swings were wide and powerful. Minsu's left hand dropped the slender knife back into its sheath. In one smooth motion, he drew a different one from his left hip. This knife had a short, heavy blade and a handguard. It was called a push dagger. He held it in his fist with the blade sticking out near his knuckles. Tavik swung his left arm blade in a wide arc. Minsu did not duck. He stepped in close. He raised his right arm, the one with the first knife. He did not block the chitin blade with his own knife. Instead, he let the flat of his forearm hit the inside of Tavik's swinging arm. It was a soft block, just enough to guide it. The same moment. His left fist, holding the push dagger, shot forward. He did not aim for the hard chest plate. He aimed for the softer joint where Tavik's arm met his body. He did not make a big stabbing motion. It was a sharp, hard punch. The thick, short blade sank an inch into the joint. Tavik roared. It was a sound of pain and shock. He jumped back, his attack broken. A drop of dark, iridescent blood welled up around the small wound. The crowd gasped. First blood? No, not yet. It was a shallow cut. But the human had drawn blood. With a tiny knife they could barely see. Minsu was already moving back, putting space between them. He left the push dagger in the wound for a second, then yanked it free as Tavik retreated. It caused more pain, more distraction. Tavik looked at the small cut. He was enraged. He charged again, no longer using careful swings. He was just trying to crush the smaller being. Problem 3. The wild charge. Minsu's right hand moved to his chest. He drew not a knife, but a heavy, weighted metal spike. It was like a big nail. As Tavik thundered toward him, Minsu did not throw it at the Lorian's body. He threw it down at the ground just in front of Tavik's leading foot. The spike hit the gritty floor and sparked. It was a sudden movement, a flash of metal at his feet. Tavik's instinct was to avoid it. He tried to shift his weight mid-step. It made him stumble, his charge turning into a clumsy stagger. Minsu was already circling to the side. His right hand drew another knife. This one had a long, slightly curved blade. A Bowie-style knife. It was the biggest one on his harness. Tavik turned, off balance and angry. He swung his right arm blade in a desperate backhand. This time, Minsu did block. He brought the big knife up, not to meet the blade edge to edge, but to catch the attack near the base of Tavik's arm blade, where the force was weakest. The steel met the chitin with a loud clang. The force was still huge. Minsu grunted, his arm shaking. But he held. He had stopped the blow. For a second, the two were locked together, the big knife holding back the natural blade. Tavik leaned in, pushing with all his strength. His ugly face was close to Minsu's. "You are weak," he hissed. Minsu did not push back. He yielded. He let Tavik's push move him. But as he moved, his left hand was busy. It went to his right thigh. It drew a thin, needle-like knife. A stiletto. The blade was no wider than a finger. While Tavik was focused on pushing, on his strength winning, Minsu's left hand shot up. It was not a powerful strike. It was a precise stab. He did not aim for armor. He aimed for the small, soft gap under Tavik's jaw, where the chitin plates of the head and neck met. The needle-thin blade slipped in. It went in only an inch. Just enough. Minsu felt it. He twisted the blade slightly and pulled it out. He pushed away, disengaging the big knife and jumping back out of range. Tavik froze. He stopped pushing. He lifted a hand to his neck. He felt the small puncture. He looked at his fingers. They came away wet with a single, thick bead of iridescent Lorian blood. It glistened under the bright lights. The wound was tiny. It was less serious than the cut in his arm joint. But it was on his neck. It was a killing blow if driven deep. And it was first blood. The arena was completely silent. No one laughed now. They had just watched something they did not understand. The human had not fought a dramatic sword battle. He had used 6 or 7 different tools. He had used a hook to unbalance, a push dagger to wound, a thrown spike to trip, a big knife to block, a needle to strike the final, precise point. He had not won with strength. He had won with a toolbox. He had solved the Lorian one small problem at a time. Ambassador Krell stood up in his box. His voice, when it came, was slow with disbelief. "First blood," he announced. "The duel is concluded. Victory is awarded to the human champion, Kim Min-soo." The silence in the arena did not last. It broke into a storm of noise. There were shouts of protest from the Lorian section. There were sounds of confusion and amazement from the others. The news drones buzzed closer. Lenses focused on the tiny bead of blood on Tavik's neck and the calm human standing 10 feet away. Tavik did not move. He stood frozen, his hands still at his neck. The small puncture stung, but the true wound was to his pride. He had been defeated, not by a stronger warrior but by a trick, a dishonorable trick of too many tools. He let out a low, vibrating growl of pure shame. Ambassador Krell left his box and walked down to the arena floor. His gray face was tight with displeasure. This was not how things were done. It was messy. It was undignified. Li Yuna pushed her way out of the diplomat's box. She moved quickly down the steps toward the floor. Her heart was pounding, but not from fear anymore. From a sudden, fierce pride. He had done it. He had actually won. By the time she reached the edge of the arena, Krell was standing between the two champions. He looked at Min-soo with cold eyes. "This display," Krell said, waving a hand at Min-soo's harness full of knives, "is a gross manipulation of the rule's spirit. It is malicious compliance." Min-soo was calmly wiping the thin, needle-like knife on a small cloth. He slid it back into its sheath on his thigh. He said nothing. He let the ambassador talk. Yuna stepped forward. She was smaller than Krell, but she stood straight. Her diplomatic training took over. Her voice was clear and carried in the quieting arena. "Ambassador Krell," she said, "the rules were stated clearly. Handheld melee tools only. My champion's tools were scanned and approved by your own arbiters. Each one complies. There was no manipulation, only a strict adherence to the terms you set." Krell turned his large eyes on her. "He has turned a duel of honor into a hardware demonstration. The intention was a test of personal martial skill. And what is more personal?" Yuna asked. "Than one's own knowledge?" She gestured toward Min-soo. "Your rules tested skill with a category of tool. My champion possesses profound skill within that category. You limited the fight to knives. You did not limit the number because you could not conceive of a use for more than one. That is not our failure. It is a failure of imagination." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Her words were sharp and true. Krell sputtered. "It is an absurdity, a disrespect to the form." From the side, Tavik finally spoke. His voice was a broken hiss. "It is cowardice, hiding behind a forest of metal. A true warrior needs only his own body." Min-soo spoke for the first time since the fight ended. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise. Your body is a tool, he said to Tavik. You are born with it. You did not earn it. You simply have it. He touched the handle of a knife on his chest. I earned the knowledge of each of these. I learned when to use a hook instead of a point, a heavy blade instead of a light one. Your tool is one. My tool is understanding. He looked at Krell. You wanted a test without guns. You got one. You saw a test of strength. I saw a complex problem. I used the correct tools to solve it. Is that not the highest skill? To solve the problem before you with the resources allowed. The arena was listening now. The argument was leaving the realm of combat and entering something else. Philosophy. A news drone floated near Yuna. She knew this was the moment. This was the story that would be told. She addressed the crowd and the watching galaxy. You look down on humanity. You call us primitive for our history with blades. You call us violent for our love of tools. She pointed at Minsu. You see a man with too many knives. I see a man who understands that every problem is different, that a single solution is a weakness. Our strength is not in any one weapon. It is in our ability to think, to adapt, to look at a rulebook and see not a cage, but a list of available materials. She turned back to Krell. The duel is over. First blood was drawn in full compliance with the agreed terms. The Human Expansion Pact expects the Kirin Belt mining rights to be recognized immediately. The Accord's integrity depends on it. Krell knew he was beaten. The law was on their side. The public argument was now swinging in their favor. He had been outmaneuvered by a human with knives and a human with words. He gave a stiff, angry nod. The results are binding, he announced to the arena, his voice filled with sourness. The human champion is victorious. The terms of the settlement will be processed. He turned and walked away quickly, his robes swishing. Tavik gave Minsu one last, hate-filled look. Then he too turned and stormed out of the arena, followed by his angry retinue. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with conversation. The story was already changing. From a joke about a man with too many knives to a puzzle. How had he done it? Yuna walked up to Minsu. He was methodically checking his harness, making sure each knife was secure. You were right, she said softly. No, Minsu said. Jaewa was right. A knife is a key. He looked around the emptying arena. Today, we just unlocked a door they didn't even know was there. The journey back to human space was quiet. Their ship, the Gyeongbok, hummed softly as it moved through the darkness. Lee Yuna sat in the small common room, reviewing reports on a datapad. The news feeds from the galactic networks were still full of the story. The headlines flashed, "The Armorer wins. 47 blades, 1 cut. Galactic Accord scrambles to redefine weapon." She looked at the analysis. Some commentators were still calling it a ridiculous stunt. But many more were talking about the deeper meaning. They used words like applied ingenuity and tactical flexibility. The Lorians were not speaking much, but their official statement was interesting. It said, "The result is accepted. The human methodology was unexpected. It forces a reconsideration of certain assumptions. For a proud warrior culture, that was a huge admission." Yuna smiled. It was a good result. Better than she had dreamed. She found Kim Minsu in the ship's small workshop. He was not repairing anything. He was cleaning. His case was open on the table. Each of the 47 knives was laid out on a soft cloth. He had a bottle of oil and a set of sharpening stones. He picked up each knife, one by one. He examined the blade for any damage. He wiped off the arena grit with a cloth. He applied a tiny drop of oil to the metal. He ran a stone along the edge of only a few, the ones that had met Tavik's chitin. His movements were slow and careful. It was not a job. It was a ritual. Yuna leaned against the doorway, watching. "They're calling you the Armorer on the news feeds," she said. Minsu gave a small shrug, not looking up from a curved blade he was inspecting. "A name is just a name. You changed things out there," Yuna said. "It wasn't just about mining rights. You changed how they see us. They thought we were simple, either primitive knife users or reckless gun users. Now they see a third thing. They see thinkers. Minsu placed the curved knife down and picked up the needle-like stiletto, the one that had drawn the final drop of blood. He held it up to the light. It was clean. "My teacher, Jaehwa," he said quietly. "She would have hated the attention, but she would have liked the lesson." "What lesson?" Yuna asked, though she felt she already knew. "That the tool does not matter," Minsu said. He put the stiletto down and tapped his own temple with a finger. "This matters. The galaxy thinks we brought 47 weapons to a fight." He looked at her, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw a real, quiet warmth in his eyes. It was the look of someone sharing a secret. "We didn't," he said. Yuna finished the thought. "You brought 47 answers." Minsu nodded. He turned back to his knives, his calm returning. "They banned guns. They thought they were limiting us, taking away our favorite toy. But a gun is just one answer to one question: how to hit a target from far away. By banning it, they just asked us a different question." He gestured over the array of blades. "And we had many, many more answers for that one." He picked up the last knife, the heavy push dagger. He cleaned a tiny spot from its hilt. "They will make new rules now. They will try to write laws to forbid what we did. Only one melee tool. Blade length restrictions. Something. And what will we do then?" Yuna asked. Minsu slid the push dagger into its place in the foam. He closed the case with a soft click. The sound was final. "We will read the new rules," he said, standing up. "And then we will follow them." "Precisely." He walked past her, carrying the case back to his cabin. Yuna stayed in the workshop, looking at the empty table. The message was clear. The galaxy could keep trying to box humanity in with laws and limitations. They could ban every tool they could think of. But they could not ban the human mind. They could not outlaw the ability to look at a problem and a set of rules and see a path no one else had imagined. The fight in the arena was over, but the real lesson was just beginning to spread across the stars. Humanity was not dangerous because we loved weapons. We were dangerous because we loved solutions. And for every problem, we would always find one.